subordinate its elements of knowledge and devotion, to take advantage of its continual insistence on action, and to find it a scripture of the Karma Yoga, a light leading us on the path of action, a gospel of works. Undoubtedly, the Gita is a gospel of works, but of works which culminate in knowledge, that is, in spiritual realization and quietude, and of works motived by devotion, that is, a conscious surrender of one's whole self first into the hands and then into the being of the Supreme, and not at all of works as they are understood by the modern mind, not at all an action dictated by egoistic and altruistic, by personal, social, humanitarian motives, principles, ideals. Yet, this is what present day interpretations seek to make of the Gita. We are told continually by many authoritative voices that the Gita, opposing in this the ordinary ascetic and quietistic tendency of Indian thought and spirituality, proclaims with no uncertain sound the gospel of human action, the ideal of disinterested performance of social duties, nay, even it would seem the quiet modern ideal of social service. To all this, I can only reply that very patently and even on the very surface of it, the Gita does nothing of the kind, and that this is a modern misreading, a reading of the modern mind into an ancient book, of the present day European or Europeanized intellect into a thoroughly antique, a thoroughly Oriental and Indian teaching. That which the Gita teaches is not a human, but a divine action, not the performance of social duties, but the abandonment of all other standards of duty or conduct for a selfless performance of the divine will working through our nature, not social service, but the action of the best, the God possessed, the master men done impersonally for the sake of the world and as a sacrifice to Him who stands behind man and nature.
Right. Thank you. So that raises a few questions in the mind. The best, the God possessed, and all. Do not do social work and all this kind of things? This will be covered in the coming two to three paragraphs. We'll read the next one and then we'll go in detail. So Yogesh ji, would you like to read?
Yeah.
Okay.
In other words, the Gita is not a book of practical ethics, but of the spiritual life. The mind is just now the European mind, such as it has become after having abandoned not only the philosophic idealism of the highest Greco Roman culture from which it started, but the Christian devotionalism of the Middle Ages. These it has replaced by or transmuted into a practical idealism and social, patriotic, and philanthropic devotion. It has got rid of God or kept him only for Sunday use and erected in his place man as its deity and society as its visible idol. At its best, it is practical, ethical, social, pragmatic, altruistic, humanitarian. Now, all these things are good, are especially needed at the present day, are part of the divine will, or they would not have become so dominant in humanity. Nor is there any reason why the divine man, the man who lives in the Brahmic consciousness, in the God being, should not be all of these things in his action. He will be. If they are the best ideal of the age, the Yuga Dharma, and there is no yet higher ideal to be established, no great radical change to be effected, for he is, as the teacher points out to his disciple, the best who has to set the standard for others. And in fact, Arjuna is called upon to live according to the highest ideals of his age and the prevailing culture, but with knowledge, with understanding of that which lay behind, and not as ordinary men with a following of the merely outward law and rule.
Right. Thank you. So yeah, one of the major takeaways from the previous paragraph was that we should not be blackmailed into uh, social service or serving parents for that matter, or humanity, or any such thing which appeals to your morals in the name of the Gita. Okay. The Gita, I'm using the word blackmail very, responsibly as I can. This is quite common in Indian culture. I'm saying just a very normal thing. Okay, in the name of the Gita, it teaches you to do your kartavyam karma and तुम्हारा कर्तव्य ये है. As very clearly he's saying, the real kartavya for every person, at least as far as the Gita teaches it, is one, and that is to unite your consciousness with the divine. When alone you can do divine action. Okay, to repeat, that which the Gita teaches is not a human but a divine action. Okay, now in this paragraph, further clarification. In other words, the Gita is not a book of practical ethics. Okay? Halaki, obviously, from the crude human level to the spiritual level, one has to go through the ethics. If you want to jump it, you cannot do it, right? So ethics, morality, all these are obviously intermediary, but they are not the highest. They are some kind of sattva guna. They are sattvic actually, like that. So it's not a book of practical ethics. It does not teach you how to live ethically. Arjuna was having a very ethical argument. Why should I kill my relatives? Why should I kill Bhishma Pitama, in whose lap I have sat in my childhood and all those things? So what it is teaching, it's the book of the spiritual life. And spiritual life means to do what God in us wants us to do. Okay, the Narayana in man, what he wants us to do. Now, the modern mind is just now the European mind. This is a very big statement. As if the Indian mind does not exist. But the fact is, first of all, he's writing in the English language. So most of the readers who would be reading this are, thoroughly anglicized in that sense, English medium education, whatever. It's not possible for somebody whose English is not good to read these kind of books. So the modern mind is just now the European mind. Okay, this is an important statement. There's a difference between the bent of mind of the Indian or the Asiatic or Oriental as opposed to the Occidental. Fundamentally being, I would put it this way, if you take 5 parts of the being, body, mind, life, and on the other side, if you take psychic and spirit. So at one place in the Foundations of Indian Culture, Sri Aurobindo says, exact sentence I don't remember, I'll try to find out and paste here. The Asiatic mind or the Indian mind in particular, it is psychic and spiritual even in its bodily, mental and vital activities. These two things tend to dominate. Okay, and it's the opposite for the European mind. So there it is the body, mind, life which dominates, and the psychic and spirit, exceptional cases are exceptions. People like, obviously, Mother is the greatest example, Satprem, Pavitra, all these people. In their case, it is the body, mind, life which tends to dominate. Somebody who has had strong interaction, close interaction with foreigners, Europeans particularly, Americans like this, you'll find the vital is very strong comparatively, right? So that's it. So that is the European mind. वो एक उसका part में हम गए to define it psychologically in the way that Sri Aurobindo has defined it. The modern mind is just now the European mind, such as it has become after having abandoned not only the philosophic idealism of the highest Greco-Roman culture. According to Sri Aurobindo, the fountain of European civilization is Greece. Okay, and there was this period of, they had their obviously religion, the old Greek gods and all, but the main, when you think of Greece, you think of the philosophers, the great names, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all these, what is it called, Heraclitus. There is in volume 13 of Sri Aurobindo, there are 9 essays on Heraclitus, like that. So they built basically the core and base of European culture. Whatever Europe is, and as an extension America is today, the origin of that is to be traced in Greece, right? Then followed by the Roman period and all. philosophic idealism of the highest Greco-Roman culture from which it started, but the Christian devotionalism of the Middle Ages. It has abandoned these two things. Christian devotionalism of the Middle Ages obviously refers to the 13th, 14th, 15th century, like that, and the period before that when Christianity was thriving. And in the name of Christianity, a lot of wrong things were done, which is why it was abandoned by the rational mind and the idealistic sort of mind when the Renaissance happened in Europe. These it has replaced by or transmuted into a practical idealism and social, patriotic, and philanthropic devotion. To be read carefully. Practical idealism, not the idealistic idealism which would make you go after the absolute. The idealistic idealism which would make you shoot for the absolute, the Brahman, to find out the truth behind all things, as opposed to the practical idealism कि करना क्या है, what do I have to do exactly, right? And a social, patriotic, and philanthropic devotion.
So,
One can
Anmol,
understand. Yeah, one second. Just I wanted to make one point, then you can say. So, very careful to note here. Very careful to note here. Important to note here. Sorry. This problem of the divorce of religion and mind, reasoning mind, intellectual mind, etc. This is a typically European problem. Okay, it happened in Europe that the mind revolted against the dominance of the church, and that is why there was sort of bifurcation. So a rational man and a religious man, they cannot be both together, basically, in that setting. This is not an Indian problem. Okay, if I might say a very poor example, the 7th chapter of the Gita is named Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Jnana, essential knowledge, Vijnana means detailed or comprehensive knowledge, but the word science, if it is having equivalent word Vijnana, obviously it's because of some reason. That detailed knowledge. It tells you how the universe is structured, physical universe and all. So here there is no such division, and we should get it out of our minds that if I am being rational or logical or mentally sound, then this is not consistent with my religious or spiritual tendencies. And Sri Aurobindo is obviously the greatest bridge for, filling this gap, for, overcoming this defect, right? So have I made my point clear? What I wanted to say, okay, this is typically a European problem. And उसका मैं origin में बता सकता हूँ when it happened. It is there in one of Sri Aurobindo's writings. He says it happened when the philosophic age in Greece started very strongly. Okay, and because of that, the phrase exactly is the insufficient religious sense of the Greeks. So when there was this sort of assault by the reason, like in the 5th, 6th century BC, when all these great philosophers came, the insufficient religious sense of the Greeks could not preserve the religion, and gradually, the reason started dominating. But this is typically a European thing. India, maybe we have had such phrases, but the distinction in India is because India has a special destiny. Its destiny is to spiritualize the entire world. Therefore, despite all the developments of region, we have had such great acharyas and everything, the fundamental sense of spirituality and devotion and all that has never gone away. But that was not the exact phrase I'm saying, the insufficient religion. And this happened in Europe in the 5th, 6th century BC. So, it's a long period, but then, as he says, the modern mind is at present the European mind or the Europeanized mind. So we are also having to some extent that. So we have to be conscious and correct that within ourselves. This is my point here. Okay. Yes, Dhavalji, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. So, Anmol, what you just mentioned about Christianity, yes, Catholics versus Protestant is exactly that. Where Galileo was crucified again for saying that the earth moves around the sun and so on and so forth, right? Yeah.
Hello?
I'm not able to hear. Can you speak up? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Tell me. No, I'm on a mobile, so that's the reason.
So your voice is breaking, sir. Dhavalji, your voice is breaking.
Yeah, I'm outside. I'm on a mobile, so I'm trying to.
Okay. Tell me, what do you want to say? What's your point?
So what you just explained is that European mindset problem is Catholics versus Protestants, right?
Basically, the bifurcation of reason and religion. And
right.
religion, to be religious is not to be irrational. And if you are a man of reason, then you know, scared of religion, it should not be the case. There is no dichotomy. Ekameva dvitiyam Brahma. There is Brahman alone, the one without a second. Religion is one form of Brahman, reason is another form of Brahman. But it is the same Brahman.
So now my earlier question, my one question which I have is regarding your earlier thing that you mentioned about Indian psychic and spirit, right? Why are you differentiating between psychic and spirit? Number one question.
Okay. Psychic is the inner dimension, spirit is the higher dimension. I mean basically that occult, religious, spiritual side of existence.
Achha. And second question relating to that is,
and because mother in her articles on education, she says physical, vital, mental education, and then psychic, and then spiritual. She even mentions a supramental education separately. Matlab, she mentions this word. So Sri Aurobindo and mother, they make a fine difference between psychic and spiritual. Psychic transformation as opposed to spiritual transformation, like that. As opposed to, I mean, as a predecessor, no, they are not in opposition. Opposition does not really once you've entered the domain of the psychic. Yeah.
Another question related was about, you mentioned about Indian psychic dwells even in the vital and other things, right? So can you give an example in the outer?
Indian psychic dwells in the vital.
No, not in the vital, but that pervasion is there, meaning they are all. It is pervasive, no? So I want to understand.
So I mean, so for example, even in the darshanas,
in day-to-day life, how do you find that out in terms of?
See, we see the whole basically national life of India permeated, shot through with the religious sense, right? The sense of the sacred, for example. Okay, this term can be used. Everything is sacred. That, you know, that sense is very deeply inbuilt inside us. That sab kuch Bhagavan hai. And everything is ultimately sacred. You know, you should give everything respect, that sort of thing. And basically everything is one. Everything is a manifestation of that one reality. That sense is very deeply embedded. You are looking for more day-to-day examples of this kind.
Yes.
So basically, like in the physical sphere, whatever you see, you know, I mean, कैसे बोलूं, आर्ट्स के सेंस में आप अपना कल्चर, पेंटिंग्स, जो कुछ भी है, इट्स सो ऑब्वियस. मेंटल में, फिलॉसफी में, हर एक चीज में, थॉट में, द माइंड टेंड्स टू गो टुवर्ड्स गॉड. यू टेंड टू फील दैट, यू नो, वो कन्वर्जेंस है हर एक चीज में. दैट अंडरलाइंग सेंस इज देयर. दैट अंडरलाइंग सेंस इज देयर. दैट टेंडेंसी टू डू नमस्कार, आई मीन, ट्रीज के अंदर, ऑब्जेक्ट्स के अंदर, पशु पक्षी में, ह्यूमन बींग्स में, everywhere to, you know, sense that divinity. You will find people worshipping trees. I mean, it's so ubiquitous. So ubiquitous examples of iske kya diye jaye at all. You can try to look for examples at physical, vital, mental levels. It is just so, and especially, I mean, to be found in the so-called simple people, jinka mind or intellect, it's not coming too much in the way of their devotion and their natural, you know, nature. It's very, very obvious in them. It might be a religious form, you know, very basic things. South India, where I am living, I mean, for example, even the lift that you use for coming up the stairs, wo lift ke upar bhi they make that tripund and they make that dot in the middle to signify Shiva.
No, but even by South India during Dashera, we worship the machines.
Yeah, why machine? मतलब जो विश्वकर्मा दिन होता है, the carpenters and the masons and all, they worship their tools. So, you know, it's so ubiquitous. That's the only word I can.
No. I wanted examples, so now I get the whole point of that.
You get the एकदम concrete example आपको मिल गया, right? Okay.
नहीं, वही मुझे concrete. I wanted to see how it manifests in day-to-day life and behavior.
Right. Now it's Anmol. Right. You mentioned two terms, psychic and spiritual.
Yes,
this aspect is the spiritualized aspect of everything, of the spirit of the.
Yeah, basically, yes.
All. So what is the difference between
psychic and spiritual? The spirit.
Correct. So how do you distinguish because you use two separate terms. You said there is spiritual and there is.
Psychic basically refers to the inner dimension, what you call going within. I mean, Sri Aurobindo, मैंने एक बार बताया था ना, कि he speaks of the inner consciousness and the concentric circles, roughly. And he speaks of the ladder of ascent, the vertical ascent. So the spiritual dimension is basically the dimension of rising above. Okay. Whereas the psychic dimension is that of going within you. Both of them will you reach the reality only. It's just a way of approach.
Okay, got it.
So Anmol,
in practical terms, For example, if you read the Gita, let's say, again, one should not make a very sharp distinction between the two. This is also to be kept in mind कि वो अंदर है और वो ऊपर है, भैया सब कुछ ultimately एक ही है. तो one should not too sharp a distinction. But yes, in मतलब spiritual, in मतलब inner experience, you do feel that you are going within. Okay. At the same time, you can feel your consciousness rising. Then what will you say? It is two different movements, not distinct movements. Like that.
So Anmol bhai, as a follow-up to that question, so if we were to map this to the Gita terminology, psychic being would be the Jivatman, isn't it?
Psychic being in the Gita is called Paraprakriti Jiva Bhuta. Jiva,
not
Jiva is the
Jivatma?
word. Jiva,
Huh? Sorry, come again?
Jivatma, yeah, Jiva. In Gita, the word Jivatman does not come. The word Jiva comes. It's the same as Jivatman, short form for Jivatman.
Yeah, but in the 15th chapter, you have no Mamai Vansho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta
Jiva Loke.
Sanatana.
Jiva Loke. Jivatman word, but it's the same thing. Jivatman is the proper word. Jiva is the short form. Yes.
Right. And the
psychic being के लिए, since you are asking, so it is there Sri Aurobindo's letters में para prakritir jiva bhuta. So the para prakriti which has become the jiva, the verse number is 1 minute 7.5. जीव भूताम महाबाहो येदम धार्यते जगत. उसके पहले आता है प्रकृतिम विद्धि में पराम. So para prakritir jiva bhuta, this does not come in this exact order in the Gita. उसका फॉर्म दूसरा है, विभक्ति दूसरी होगी. But para prakriti meaning the higher nature, the divine mother, jiva bhuta, which has become the jiva. Okay? Bhuta है इसीलिए feminine. Para prakriti which has become the jiva. Para prakriti jiva bhuta. This is the Gita equivalent for the psychic being. ये letters में कपाली शास्त्री ने ये किया था किसी के साथ, and it is there in Sri Aurobindo, in a letter of Sri Aurobindo. I can share that after the session.
Acha. And one more thing was, like, we in this essays on the Gita itself, we mentioned there is the term which was used, Nara and Narayana. So Narayana is the spirit.
Narayana is the God within you.
Oh, sorry. Nara is what we are, right?
Nara is the human soul. Narayan is the divine soul.
Correct. So the divine soul would be what then?
The way it is used in the essays on the Gita, Narayana is the Sangya for the divine within you.
Sorry, I'm losing you there. I don't understand Sangya in what sense? Can you please
Sangya in the sense of the thing, when the thing is completely known, then the word which is used for that thing is called Sangya. Samyak jnayate. So Narayana is the word for the inner divinity.
Achha. So it is not to be confused with Jivatma or anything, or is it?
No. Narayana is the Ishvara itself. Narayana is the Ishvara consciousness itself. Whereas the Jiva, as long as it is presiding over its own particular manifestation, it does not know itself as the Ishvara of everything. It might feel itself as the Ishvara of this particular body-mind life complex. Okay? So for example, in the 15th chapter, verse number 8, in the verse number 7, the word that is used is Jiva. But immediately in the next verse, the word that is used is Ishvara. So when we become master of ourselves, we are Ishvara. But we are not Sarveshvara, or we are not Parameshvara. We are not the master of everything, or we are not the supreme. Right? That distinction has to be clear. When we
so
use Ishvara, we mean the one who controls the universe. But if you start controlling yourself, that will not automatically lead to your controlling the universe. That also might happen as the Siddhi progresses. But the first thing that has to be achieved is Swarajya. अपने ऊपर पूरी तरह कंट्रोल और विजय प्राप्त करना.
Correct. And then Samrat.
The
Swaraj and then Samrat, right?
Defects is to see defects in others. It defeats the point completely. It does not, कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता उससे. A person is what a person is, We face this all the time. Our job is to mind our own defects and get total control over ourselves. अपना ईश्वर बनना है पहले. किसी और का ईश्वर तो हम बाद में बनेंगे. अगर भगवान ने चाहा तो.
फिर सम्राट.
Exactly. First Swarat, then Samrat.
But Anmol, is there somewhere you can give the mapping? Like ये जो अभी जो discussion हुआ उसका mapping कहीं है क्या आपके पास?
इसका mapping?
Like Nara, Narayana, Jiva, as the psychic being, the terminology is used by Sri Aurobindo, and then the spirit which we just...
Okay, listen. Narayana is the divine within you. Okay. Shri Aurobindo does speak of the God within you, the divine within you. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, अगला आपका क्या word है? Psychic being. Okay. For all practical purposes, psychic being is the divine. For all practical purposes, and it's not actually. But if you find your psychic being, you have found God within you. That's what Mother says. Because psychic being is inseparable from the divine. The moment you touch the psychic consciousness, truly, then you will touch the God consciousness also. There is no difference between the two, essentially. Psychic में
Okay.
obviously आपको वो devotion वगैरह आएगा, whereas God has power, omnipotence, omniscience, all that. But essentially there is no difference because it is that Satchidananda consciousness, that self-existent Ananda. That is the essence of the matter. That is the difference between the body, mind, life and the psychic consciousness. The soul, the self, the psychic and all na, they don't need anything to be blissful. वो self-existent bliss है. That is like the fundamental definition of that consciousness. Getting
हाँ,
it?
so that
Nara
means
means the human soul. ये हमने
okay.
पहले किया था. We are repeating it.
Correct,
Nara means
correct.
the
No,
human soul,
That's why I
which then again you can say Manomaya Purusha, or as a whole you can say it is Manomaya plus Pranamaya plus Annamaya,
no.
depends upon you.
No,
If
just
you
hear
want to
me
call
out
it
fully,
human,
because
the word human comes from the word Mana only ultimately. So human would mean, human soul would mean, the Nara would mean the Manomaya Purusha.
yeah, just hear me out fully, because this part, no, I'm always finding it tough to map it properly. So the terms that are used are spirit, psychic being. So if I were to say that, is spirit the same as soul or the Atman, and whereas the psychic being,
Essentially, okay. But spirit is basically that. Spirit is a very general word. Spirit can even mean the highest divine himself. That is why, to be careful, we use certain adjectives. We say the transcendent spirit. Okay. By spirit, generally we mean God that way. He who is
because
above everything and transcends everything, like that.
sorry, I'm still bit yeah, I can understand, but I want to write it down. So that's why I'm looking for some sort of mapping where these terms do not come in the way of understanding the correct perspective and getting the correct perspective. So for example, Sri Aurobindo uses immanent divine, then he uses
But
the
it
word
means the divine within you. Okay, very
so
clear.
that is the Kshara Purusha, right? Is immanent the
Difficult to
Kshara
say.
Purusha
Kshara
of
Purusha
Gita?
और immanent का mapping के बारे में I am not sure actually.
Acha. Because then there is universal divine, then there is the transcendent divine, right? These are the three divines.
Yeah.
The poises.
Basically, the divine within the individual, the divine within the cosmos, and that aspect of the divine which is beyond everything. इसके लिए there is a sentence in the Life Divine which can help to understand कि just as the cosmic embraces the individual, similarly the transcendent embraces the cosmic. Am I heard?
Maybe Anmol, we can take this offline because it might
I think
hold
better.
up everybody.
I think it's better. I think it's better. Yeah. Okay. So sorry for the delay. Yeah. Social, patriotic, and philanthropic devotion, like that. It has got rid of God or kept him only for Sunday use and erected in his place man as its deity and society as its visible idol. So, this is what happens. Man as its deity. अब इसमें और explanation आएगा. We should read further. At its best, it is practical, ethical, social, pragmatic, altruistic, humanitarian, as opposed to divine. These are forms of the divine. But if you do not touch that absolute, then in these actions, the true power will not come. Yogaha karmasu kaushalam, says the Gita. Verse number अभी right now मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा है. It is yoga that is the skill in works. Karmasu माने षष्ठी बहुवचन है, in works. Kaushalam, dexterity, kushalta. Yoga prathama vibhakti. Okay. It is yoga that is skill in works, by which is meant when you are in that state of union with the divine consciousness, then alone will the true efficiency in your works come. All right. So now all these things are good. See, अभी वो उसको support कर रहे हैं. पिछले पैराग्राफ में वो कह रहे थे नहीं वो ये नहीं है. That's why you have to, just like Shri Aurobindo said ना, कि the Gita has to be taken entirely. So you have to read Sri Aurobindo continuously, and then you can, after 2-3 paragraphs or whatever, get the sense of what he's saying. Because his argument also goes in a, like this fashion. He will, this is his tendency, logically. He will first make a statement, then Purva Paksha wo khud hi kar dete hain. He'll refute himself. And then he will do like this, balancing. And perfectly and pure all-rounded way he will give. Especially in the Life Divine, this is there. But in other books also. Right? So, now all these things are good, are especially needed at the present day. He's talking about 100 years ago, but even in these times, we feel that there is a necessity for these things. If there were not people who were not inclined towards these, I mean, the world would be poorer for that, right? Are part of the divine will, or they would not have become so dominant in humanity. Very important. The fact that they are so dominant, it shows that kahin na kahin Bhagwan ki ichha uske piche hai. Something, quite obvious. Nor is there any reason why the divine man, the man who lives in the Brahmic consciousness, in the God being, should not be all of these things in his action. Exactly, right? He will be. If they are the best ideal of the age, the Yuga Dharma. So, in the Gita, there is this phrase, Sarvarambha Parityagi. So, the yogi, he goes into that state wherein he does not initiate action. He basically waits upon the will of God to do what God wants to get done through him. Right? And then if God wants him to do philanthropic activity or practical, ethical, jo bhi kuch likha hai yahan pe, altruistic, then that is what he will do, because that is what the society needs, that is what the world needs. Right? And there is no yet higher ideal to be established. Like in Sri Aurobindo's case, he started with a nationalistic ideal. Why did he start yoga? Because he wanted freedom for his country. But then he was given an even higher ideal, yoga for humanity. Then yoga for the divine itself, for the divine fulfillment of the divine in the world. This is how he says his yoga progressed. From nation to humanity to divinity. Finally, he reached the stage of yoga for the sake of the divine. For nothing less than that. Right? A mutual debt binds man to the supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. वो हमारा उसके प्रति ऋण है. It is our debt to the divine. That is why we must do yoga for the sake of the divine. Right? Archana ji is okay. For he is, as the teacher points out to his disciple, the best, Shrestha, 3rd chapter mein word aata hai, who has to set the standard for others. And in fact, Arjuna is called upon to live according to the highest ideals of his age. Kshatriya dharma, protection of the weak, establishment of the dharma and all that, and the prevailing culture, but with knowledge, with a deep spiritual understanding behind the work that he is, being asked to do. With understanding of that which lay behind. What lies behind is the divine, the spirit, if you want to call it. So, and not as ordinary men, with a following of the merely outward law and rule. So, ये एक merely outward law and rule है कि एक Kshatriya must fight a righteous battle and all. But what is behind it? What is the divine intention behind the war? What does the divine want to achieve through this? Right? So, and this actually, when you understand that he wars for the world and its ultimately, as this line is there in the poem Who. So, it makes a total mockery of that Mayavad theory. कि इतना लड़ाई झगड़ा इतना कुछ हुआ है, there has been such a struggle going on for ages in the world. For what ultimately? For the world to realize that it was an illusion. It's such a, pessimistic thing basically.
Anmol, the Western mindset with what you're explaining, it
Yes.
appears that it's an evolution, the best evolution being a sattvic mindset where all these 7-8
Sort of,
qualities
yes.
that are defined
All these
are
ethical, yeah.
anchored in
Yes.
the human consciousness wanting to do it, being altruistic, being helpful,
Yes.
all of that.
Yes.
But there is
Yes.
no evolution to the ultimate, which is what I think he's trying to distinguish. But the
Yes.
point that you made just now of the
Achha,
divine
by the way,
will,
it's not such a fine point to understand or even experience. This takes time. Because, आप please बोलिए पहले, please complete yourself. Then,
Yeah. Yeah, so you just now said that if the divine will, and you gave this beautiful example of Sri Aurobindo himself, that, there was a time where he had to be behind the prison and become self-realized. So at every stage, the divinity wanted him to do.
In fact, in the Uttarpara speech, the revelation is made that because his political work was so dear to him, that he was getting the call to go into seclusion, but his work was very dear to him and he was not obeying the call. That is why he had to be arrested and put in the prison. Krishna kind of, it should not be taken literally, but Krishna put him in the prison so that he could keep him in silence. And he said, so that I could train you for my work. So very divine can be very, if you read the tales of prison life of Sri Aurobindo, I mean, what to say, it is
So the point I was making is that what this then it elaborates is that whatever each one of us is facing minute by minute is divine will then. At that time, it was right for him to face that. So
Yes.
does that mean divine will is what is our current state or whatever we are facing? That's divine will?
No, that is the divine will in a very indirect sort of sense. But we have to consciously unite see, as if you were saying this, see, if somebody who is in the divine will, he has a total certitude, then the question itself will not arise. You see?
Right.
Somebody's will is united with the divine to that extent, there is such a certitude, perfect certitude in the action. And with that surrender, which Mother says, Sri Aurobindo says, once you have surrendered, it's no longer your concern, it's the concern of the divine. So that absolute certitude and power comes with the action. And
Right.
I'm not saying that what we are doing is not the divine will in that sense. But again, there are degrees of it. Everything there is a gradation. So
Correct.
one thing is to, you get my point.
I got it. Thanks.
Yeah, welcome. So, yeah, I mean, we have to read the next paragraph, otherwise uska sense aayega nahi. So, who would like to read? Rituji, would you like to read the next paragraph? नहीं. Arora ji? Madan Gopal ji? Not there. Okay, then Harshita, Dhaval Bhaiya is not right now.
No, actually, I'm on my mobile, so I won't be able to. That's the
Harshita,
problem.
can
I
you please
can
read the
read,
next?
Bhaiya.
Thank
No
you.
problem. So from one second.
From here, but the point here is,
Yes. But the point here is that the modern mind has exiled from its practical motive power the two essential things, God or the eternal, and spirituality or the God state, which are the master conceptions of the Gita. It lives in humanity only, and the Gita would have us live in God, though for the world in God, in its life, heart, and intellect only, and the Gita would have us live in the spirit, in the mutable being who is all creatures, and the Gita would have us live also in the immutable and the supreme, in the changing march of time, and the Gita would have us live in the eternal. Or if these higher things are now beginning to be vaguely envisaged, it is only to make them
subservient.
Subservient to man and society. But God and spirituality exist in their own right and not as adjuncts. And in practice, the lower in us must learn to exist for the higher, in order that the higher also may in us consciously exist for the lower, to draw it near to its own altitude.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
This is extremely profound,
Very profound and very important to understand. Even if the rest of the class we dwell on this, very important. So yeah, but the point
I
here
think
is
इसको
that
एक और session चाहिए रहेगा because there are a lot of words heavily packed.
very much. And something which is addressing is so fundamental and it is a problem, universal problem. All of us in some part of our mind are being addressed by this. हम सबके अंदर एक tendency रहता है. I mean, वही ना, the modern mind is the European mind, so naturally क्या करेंगे? What to do? So, but the point here is that the modern mind has exiled from its practical motive power the two essential things, God or the eternal and spirituality or the God state, which are the master conceptions of the Gita. This must be underlined. These are the master conceptions of the Gita. What? God or the eternal, what the Gita calls Purushottama, and spirituality or the God state. Now, I mean, usually, we see that there are good people. Okay, again, because of that bifurcation of mind and devotion and spirituality and all that. So there are good people, honest, sattvic, helpful, this, that, but they're averse to even listening the word God or divine. अगर आपने God word use कर दिया, अरे, something wrong. This is something, this is hypocrisy or this is some kind of superstition, that sort of thing. This is due in a large part, the reason for this is due in a large part to this European influence. this European influence. There's no
The
doubt.
European influence imports God inside the world. Is
Yes,
what I would
yes,
make a statement.
yes, 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 yes. If that Indian innate, that ऐसा नहीं है कि all Indians are born, spiritual people or anything. All kinds of people are in all kinds of, nations
नहीं
like
नहीं
that.
वैसे नहीं, in general I'm saying.
Yes, yes. In general, basically, that faith in God is very natural, right? And अच्छा इसमें क्या होता है? So you want to join an NGO, let's say, or you want to do some humanitarian work or social work, but God, no, no, no. Few people are there who are actually, जो शिवबंधु बोल रहे हैं ना, who are God realized or who are God inclined, that kind of inclination, and from that state they are serving society as a service of God. But many are, वो जो aversion हो गया, it's actually an asuric thing. This aversion, and actually, again, for this proper explanation, you find in the Life Divine, wherein that, what is the chapter name? Materialist denial, right? So there he says कि there was a phase when the spirit was given excessive importance. Okay. And now this phase has to come where matter has to be given its importance. And with matter, sort of comes the denial of God, because, how can you believe in something which you cannot see? All those sort of things. So this is a phase through which we are going. वो बहुत ज्यादा होता है. But point here is basically this, that God or the eternal and spirituality or the God state, this has to be the center point and not humanity or this or that. गीता का काम आपको सोशल वर्कर बनाना नहीं है. The job of the Gita is to make you a God realized man. Okay. Yes, I'll just read this again. But the point here is that the modern mind has exiled, उसको देश निकाला दे दिया, has exiled from its practical motive power the two essential things. I mean, I don't know what the two essential things, so powerful, so important here. The two essential things: God or the eternal, and spirituality or the God state, which are the master conceptions of the Gita. It lives in humanity only. If we also have caught this disease, basically, in a sense, हालांकि उसके पीछे एक truth है. The truth in that aversion to the word God or divine is basically the revolt against superstition, the revolt against religion, which binds you and narrows you and all that. That is the truth in that. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Our savior formula. Truth.
And also Anmol, to some extent, against revolt against the ritualistic mindset.
Yes.
Of karma kand.
Mechanicalness, ritualism, all that. But I mean, we are doing Essays on the Gita class as a ritual every Monday and Friday. So it is necessary now. How can you say that ritual is not necessary?
Till we recognize the value in the ritual.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Just giving a counter
Just
example.
going to temple every morning and 7 o'clock doesn't make sense.
Exactly. People here in let's take a Pondicherry example. So here, almost everybody will go to the Samadhi at least once who are living here. Is it a merely ritual? No, it is not. When you go there, even if you stand there for 2 minutes, you get that spiritual bath from the mother. आपका शुद्धि हो जाता है. So it's not a ritual. It is having a very powerful spiritual purpose behind it. The Samadhi can do anything to you, depends on your receptivity. So, I mean, anyway. So
no,
it lives in humanity.
I didn't mean from that perspective. What
I'm not negating you. I'm just giving a counter example to what I said. I'm not negating you. I'm not arguing.
Correct.
It lives in humanity only. And the Gita, very important. जो modern mind है, it lives in humanity only. वो उसके beyond नहीं जा पाता. अब जैसे शिवानंद आश्रम का one of the criticisms, ये आश्रम humanity के लिए क्या करता है? क्या अपना खाते पीते हैं, मजे करते हैं, साधना करते हैं. What are they doing for society है खैर उसके लिए. But then, this is an accusation which was made in Shivabando's time. What are you doing for humanity? What they are doing for humanity is beyond the understanding of people who are asking this kind of question. Mother said it.
This question is typically, Anmolji, asked by a mindset which believes in normative order of society.
And which is why most spiritual institutions, they actually bend to this kind of objection and they start getting into... So Ramakrishna Mission is an example. उसमें अगर वो डिवीजन हो गया, there is the order of monks and then there is the mission. So there are two different things and there is third thing called Advaita Ashram, which is totally different. वो तो वहाँ पे रामकृष्ण विवेकानंद की फोटो तक नहीं लगाते हैं.
नहीं, ये सब ethics और उसमें चले जाते हैं ना, फिर morality में, which is a normative order.
You are diluted from the main spiritual purpose.
Correct.
It is not, there are people who are definitely meant to do social service, live for humanity, serve humanity, etc., etc. Sri Aurobindo himself said so. But there are people who should be left free to pursue their spirituality in wholeheartedly, freely, so that, they can bring in those transforming forces into the world. Those who
Correct.
can
I
become
was
genuine yogis.
right.
अगर
I
एक
was
योगी क्रिएट हो जाए, the ripple effect is unbelievable. Sri Aurobindo says,
correct. Correct.
just as the human soul reproduces in animal bodies, sorry, the human being in animal bodies, similarly the divine soul reproduces in divine liberated souls. So if one person is liberated, there is a worlds are affected basically. It has a very powerful cascading effect on the general liberation of everybody.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
not just vertical, it has a horizontal liberation effect. It's a very powerful sentence from the Life Divine. Please remind me if I forget to share it.
No,
Yes, sir, saying
definitely.
something.
Also, one more thing I am reminded of is when I was sitting in Dr. Anand Reddy's lecture, and it was a day prior to Mother's Darshan Day, Sarohum Darshan. He said, when you are going even through Darshan, take an act of simple namaskar. We just bow down when we see a god or somewhere. No, don't make it a mechanical, ritualistic action, and that hit me very hard, and it's so true.
Yeah,
You have to
it's true.
you have to
be
prepare
receptive, you have to
yourself
be
for
quiet.
that.
Main thing is you have to be quiet. The
You
quieter you are, the more you will be able to assimilate. The force is being given anyway. The fact that you are passing through her room or going to the samadhi, you are surrounded by a force field. Matlab, it's just, you can't do anything. But how much you are able to assimilate depends on how quiet you are.
True, and not any outward action. Basically, that's what he was trying to tell. That
No.
you prepare
तो
yourself
गीता
for
बोलती है the yogi cannot be seen by the outward signs. स्थिता प्रज्ञा वाला जो सेक्शन है उसमें, है ना?
Sorry, come again.
I'm saying the yogi cannot be seen by the external actions. That comes in the Sthita Prajna portion of the Gita. Ki how does he say,
True.
what does he do, etc. Sarva Karmani Gita bolti hai. Yogi is supposed to do everything. Whatever, he's supposed to do, he does it. Sarva Karmani is the word of the Gita. Right? Okay. So it lives in humanity only, and the Gita would have us live in God, though for the world in God. Very important. Not just in God and lost to the world. Then the world won't progress. For the world in God. What is the word? Loka Sangraharthaya. That comes in the 3rd chapter. For the holding together of the peoples. For the world in God. The world has to progress. And the world is, pulled forward by these Shreshthas, these best, these God-possessed men. And, that's why I'm saying again, the freedom should be given to such souls and they are the leaders, they pull you forward. Humanity collectively moves forward slowly. It is these individuals who are the barrier breakers. Right? So, and the Gita would have us live, in its life and heart and intellect only. This is the modern mind. This is, this is all the human aspect, life, heart, intellect. This is all the human dimension. Okay. And the Gita would have us, this needs to be read so slowly, my God. And the Gita would have us live in the spirit. I'm sorry, I'll have to read this again from the beginning. This requires a very deliberate and slow reading. But the point here is that the modern mind has exiled from its practical motive power the two essential things, God or the eternal, and spirituality or the God state, which are the master conceptions of the Gita. The modern mind lives in humanity only, and the Gita would have us live in God, though for the world in God, in its life, heart, and intellect only, and the Gita would have us live in the spirit, in the mutable being who is all creatures. So this is the Kshara Purusha, Ksharaha Sarvani Bhutani, which is why I was hesitating to make the equivalence, and maybe it is right, maybe it is not, I am not sure, between the Kshara Purusha and the immanent divine, as Dhaval Bhai was saying, because in the mutable being who is all creatures, and the Gita would have us live also in the immutable and the supreme, the Akshara and the Uttama.
Correct. So this is Akshara and the Purushottama, correct?
Purushottama. Supreme
Now,
means Uttama.
So this, when we say Purushottama, it is not, it is the transcendental, right?
Yes.
And when we say
It is the transcendental.
Akshara, it is the universal divine, correct?
Yes, cosmic, yeah.
Cosmic divine. Yeah, which Sri Krishna gave to the darshan in the mother to his
Again,
mother.
if you say the word cosmic divine, okay,
हाँ.
अक्षरा का मतलब होता है immutable, ठीक है? Cosmos means the world. Cosmos literally means order, but cosmos means the world. Does the world not change?
Come
The
again.
question is how do you define cosmic divine? What are you calling cosmic divine?
The
If you
entire
call
universe.
cosmic divine as all that is in the cosmos, then obviously it progresses, it improves, and it changes. Then how can you say that it is the Akshara? Akshara is an aspect of the divine which is the base, which is the silent and eternal repose, कहते हैं Sri Aurobindo उसको.
Oh,
It
I
is
see.
the
Okay.
eternal silence of the divine. It's an
Okay.
aspect. But to equate it with the cosmic may not be correct. Because in the cosmic there would be both. There would be the silence also, but there would be the cosmic activity also. And both are divine. If we make the mistake of thinking that it is only the Indian tendency वही है ना, thinking that it is the silence and the static ascetic state which is the divine state. It has been there with us for so long.
This what you just said earlier really clarifies a lot, because see,
Yes.
cosmos is ever mutating, right?
Exactly.
The whole Brahman.
Exactly. Then how can you say that it is
called
Akshara?
Brahma.
Akshara का
Brahma,
मतलब ही immutable होता है, unchanging.
So Bruha means to expand, and Anda means egg. So it's actually describing the entire form of the universe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is an expanding. So it cannot be immutable. It is mutable. It has to be mutable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that means the Akshara is also the entire universe which is manifested.
And again, sir, if you are taking the word cosmos only in the physical sense, you are limiting the meaning.
Right. That's right.
Cosmos includes other worlds also.
These words are overloaded, no? So that's why I needed some clarification.
See, the word comes from a Greek origin. So they had some sense of the occult worlds, but at present times, cosmos has come to mean only the physical cosmos. So actually, this is the problem with English words. They tend to dilute the. इसीलिए Sri Aurobindo synthesis of yoga में clearly कहते हैं for yoga purposes as far as possible use Sanskrit words, उनमें ambiguity नहीं.
So cosmos is a Russian word, no?
No. English word, but comes from a Greek origin.
Acha.
And cosmos literally means order. It is the opposite of chaos, which means disorder.
Oh, okay.
Literally, cosmos means order. Okay. चलो, we'll see. At least we'll finish this paragraph.
हाँ नहीं, इसमें ना थोड़ा dwell करेंगे बाद में भी. Yeah, but
Anmol,
yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes.
See, the way the sentence is structured, he's giving both in contrary. He's saying what is the human way of doing it and what is the Gita saying. I'll just repeat one line so to get clarity from you. It says it lives in humanity only, and the Gita would have us live in God, though for the world in God. So here he's talking about what the Gita wants, but the next sentence where it says, in its life, heart, and intellect only. This is the other aspect of how we are living currently. And then he gives the contrary, and the Gita would have us live in the spirit. Have I got it right?
Right. Correct. That is the structure. That is the sentence structure. There is one part which is we have not read again yet.
Yeah. So when he says, though for the world in God, now world includes the individual and it includes the life, heart, and intellect also. So why is he distinguishing this? Because he says, and the Gita would have us live in God, though for the world in God. And then he's giving the contrary, but we are focused on living in
the there is no contradiction here. So see, he has framed this sentence is separated by 3 semicolons. Okay. So one part of thought, okay, so it lives in humanity only. So he's contrasting humanity with divinity. First, he's doing that. Okay. Then let's say to explain humanity, he's saying humanity means life, heart, and intellect, whereas divinity means spirit. This is what he's saying. Okay. Then he's saying in the mutable who is all creatures, and the Gita would also live in the immutable and the supreme. So basically again the human and the divine, the lower and the higher. Like this. This is the sentence structure.
Okay. So he's then contrasting, as you
rightly said, the human-centric view versus the divine-centric view.
Right. Got it. Thanks.
Most welcome. In the changing march of time, and the Gita would have us live in the eternal. So getting that consciousness of eternity.
Right.
So for example, I mean, not maybe in this kind of setting where people are exposed, but nowadays, find in India also people have started losing faith in rebirth. Generally, if you say, I don't believe it is there, maybe it is there, again, it depends from case to case basis. But in general, that because of that invasion now, again,
Correct.
In a sense,
उनको
if you want to see the
उनको पढ़ाना
conflict or the
पड़ेगा वो
battle that is going on in the world is between the Western paradigm and the Western view of the world and the Asiatic paradigm and the Asiatic view of the world. That view is materialistic fundamentally. बोला ना body
But-
life mind that dominates their psychic and spirit, वो suppress हो जाता है. Whereas the Indian view is psychic and spiritual, and that tends to dominate the body life and mind. So the tussle that is going on in the world, I mean, if you want to see that tussle that way, ultimately there is no tussle. Ultimately, everything is going on the way the divine, wants it to go. But at a certain level, that tussle is also there. That, conflict is also there. Wherein the West is, and it's been happening not for today. I mean, it's obviously the Europe conquered Asia so many years ago, 200, 300 years
Anmol,
ago.
does this imply where it contrasts the way we exist in life, heart, and intellect only, and the Gita would have us live in the spirit? That means that if we are constantly focused on being in the spirit would look after our life, heart, and intellect.
Exactly.
It implies
Our
that
life, heart,
it's a
and
higher-
intellect would get spiritualized. They will start
Right.
getting the qualities of the spirit. What are the qualities of the spirit? The qualities of the spirit, let's say eternity, okay, immortality, infinity, ananda. This is how Sri Aurobindo defines Sat, Chit, Shakti, and Ananda. He says Brahma is Sat, Brahma is immortality, Vishnu is Chit, Vishnu is eternity, Shiva is Shakti, and Shiva is infinity, and Krishna is Ananda. तो यू स्टार्ट गेटिंग आनंद वर्ड हम कैजुअली यूज करते हैं, कितना आनंद आया आपसे मिलके, ये भोजन करके आनंद आ गया. दैट इज नॉट आनंद. दैट इज सिंपली अ काइंड ऑफ सुख. दैट इज नॉट आनंद. So you start tasting that divine Ananda. And Anand की क्या definition है? Self-existent. It does not depend on anything else for its existence.
Beautiful.
The sense of eternity starts coming.
Right.
So for example, जैसे corporate circles में this word deadline, ठीक है, it is necessary to make sure that people are not lazy and they are disciplined. But हाय राम, अगर ये नहीं किया तो मैं मर जाऊंगा. अरे क्या हो जाएगा भाई? This is just one birth. There will be another birth after this. And I mean, काय को इतना वो problem है? Because people have lost the basic sense of even rebirth. I can't blame, because without experience, it's difficult to believe. But it is
नहीं बहुत जन
faith is nothing but the foresight of the soul. Faith is the torchlight given by the soul for you to move forward. अगर आप अपनी faith को और religious जो आपके अंदर belief है उसको बिल्कुल suppress कर दोगे, you'll be dead. You'll become
Exactly.
totally realistic. You can't move a foot forward in life.
Exactly.
Right.
And that is what he's pointing out कि these all things are good. But the point is you have to realize God. You have to be spiritually conscious
नहीं तो
of the
पूरा
eternal.
वेस्ट की तरह हम भी एम्प्टी हो जाएंगे ना.
तो हो ही रहा है, वो तो हो ही रहा है. At present, the mind is the European mind. It's a very powerful, it's a damning statement actually, even on the Indian mind. What about the Indian mind?
This is a very
Indian mind.
kalank
Why
jesa.
did the Indian mind get so suppressed that Sri Aurobindo is having to write the modern mind is just now the European mind? It has got suppressed badly.
और आप जो बता रहे हैं ना, ये बहुत टेंडेंसी बहुत कॉमन है.
It's already 9, so in another 3-4 minutes we have to
मजाक कर
finish.
लेने दो.
Yes.
ये और उनको ना, ये प्रॉब्लम ऑफ रीबर्थ इज अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल टेक्स्ट.
It's a very beautiful text, right? Exactly, very beautiful. Please share the link of that after the session, Dhaval bhai.
I don't know whether it's available as a part of the
It's there. It's there in volume 13.
Volume 13? Okay.
Section है पूरा, 13 essays, 13-14 essay हैं उसमें. Right? So we just finished this. Or if these higher things are now beginning to be vaguely envisaged, it is only to make them subservient to man in society. Again the problem. But अब देखो कितना important sentence है. God and my goodness. God and spirituality exist in their own right and not as adjuncts. Sri Aurobindo is breaking barriers as he is writing these sentences. I'm telling you. Occult action हो रहा है. God and spirituality, adjunct का मतलब होता है something additional. कि ये भी. No. God and spirituality exist in their own right and not as adjuncts. The central importance of these things. And again, in India, essentially it is there, but it is getting it's getting a beating from the European culture और वो सारा जो Western, youngsters are mostly enamored of. I was also as a youngster enamored of these things. So gradually the change comes when you get exposed to people like Sri Aurobindo, right? So, and in practice, the lower in us, in practice, the lower in us must learn to exist for the higher consciously, in order that the higher also may in us consciously exist for the lower, to draw it nearer to its own altitudes. This paragraph is too profound.
such a line
Too
only Sri
profound.
Aurobindo can write.
Oh,
Baki
yes,
ye pura
yes.
paragraph
Nobody can write such a line with so much
may
meaning and so
draw
much
it
depth
near
and
to its altitudes.
right
Amazing,
fact
no?
in just a few words. It's only Sri Aurobindo who can do it. Unbelievable.
I think let us just stop here with this
Yeah, let's
because
just be
this,
silent. It's too
yeah.
profound. Or maybe I'll just read very slowly, or somebody else would like to read. Just read this
Yeah,
paragraph
please
very
read slowly,
slowly.
no, once again. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. But the point here is that the modern mind has exiled from its practical motive power the two essential things: God or the eternal, and spirituality or the God spirit, which are the master conceptions of the Gita. It lives in humanity only, and the Gita would have us live in God, though for the world in God. In its life, heart, and intellect only, and the Gita would have us live in the spirit, in the mutable being who is all creatures, and the Gita would have us live also in the immutable and the supreme, in the changing march of time, and the Gita would have us live in the eternal. But, sorry, or if these higher things are now beginning to be vaguely envisaged, it is only to make them subservient to man and society. But God and spirituality exist in their own right and not as adjuncts. And in practice, the lower in us must learn to exist for the higher, in order that the higher also may in us consciously exist for the lower, to draw it nearer to its own altitudes.